like you're starting really low. It's really comfortable, and then you just constantly get better and better, and that's the way your body works anyway. Like you build up a habit, and then as your habit is like solidified, then you gradually get better and better. And that's the first thing. And then what you were saying, if there's a group of people that you're accountable for, then you're going to go do it. Like accountability is huge, whether you're going with a group of people or if you just say like, yo, hey man, I'm really going to, somebody that you trust and that you love and that loves you, hey, I'm going to work out and I'm going to really work on my health and I need you to just hold me accountable. Or even if you say I'm going to do it, chances are next time you meet up with them, they'll be like, hey, how's that going? Like, oh man, I ain't did anything. Like, dang man, you said you were going to do it. Yeah, well, I didn't. Like, yeah, I care about you. You should do that. Oh, all right. And then that accountability is almost, it's there.
Right.
Period.
And then honestly, too, let's be honest, like, how much, like, I'll be honest with you, there are times when running is just miserable. It's like, that's my thing. I run, right?
Yeah.
But like, sometimes I enjoy it when it's going on. Sometimes it's painful, not fun. I don't feel great, dehydrated, hot, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But every time I finish running, clarity of mind, I feel good.
Oh, man.
I feel like I've maybe, I've earned the right to have some ice cream tonight. But you know what I'm saying? Like, how good do you feel just about yourself? And I think that like is an intangible that definitely drives me, because that's part of the addiction of wanting. It's
an
like,
accomplishment.
Yes.
Every time.
Every day.
Yo, I killed it. I killed it again. Oh, I ran for 30 minutes. Oh my gosh, I did it again.
Like, I overcame this mental block in my mind, wanted to say, you can't do this, and I overcame it. Bruh, like.
Yeah, I think that connects to mental health too. Mental wellness.
Okay, go there.
Because you got to be able to you got to be able to actually tell yourself you did a good job. Not everybody's in that point. Like some people might be like, because I know for a while for me, I would get done with my workout and I'd be like, man, all I did was power clean 315 today. I saw a dude over there, he had like 345. I'm not doing that again. Like I got to get there. I got to get there. And I would beat myself up daily, and that would continue to drive me. But then when I got out of college, it's just like, I'm no longer a thrower. This don't make sense anymore. That's not helping me.
Right.
So you being able to say, or anybody being able to say, yo, I did a really good job, man, I feel so accomplished. That's pushing into mental health, because you need to be able to encourage yourself rather than tear yourself down.
Yeah.
And if you are continuing to encourage yourself, then it's a good thing. That's helping it become a good thing and not a God thing, because if that's what you measure yourself as,
right,
and you know what I'm saying, you're holding on this pedestal, so it gets dangerous.
Yeah,
it gets dangerous, man.
Now, I appreciate that, just because this idea of discipline, it's always constantly on my mind. And the fact, because we were talking earlier, where when we talk about health, we kind of like compartmentalize it. You know, you've got your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, all these healths that we kind of compartmentalize, when I think we should see them as a collective unit. And that if we're failing in one, it's going to affect the other areas.
No doubt, man.
As well. And so I look at you guys and I see how disciplined you are, and something that, man, I heard something that was just really, really convicting. We were just talking about just a simple discipline of like, because in order to get up in the morning and run, you have to get up in the morning. Like I set an alarm for myself, but then I hit snooze. Like you have to discipline yourself not to say, hey, I'm not going to hit snooze, or not even that. Let's even go back. Discipline yourself to go to bed at a decent time.
Right.
To go ahead and do that, so that you get a decent amount of sleep, so that, hey, I can wake up without still feeling groggy. Yeah. So those little small steps of discipline, it's like evident of how you're disciplined in other areas of your life, because all of us are married, and so it's like that takes a great deal of discipline as well. So it's like, I forget what the quote was, but it's like, if you're not disciplined in these little things, how can you be disciplined when it's bigger? And it's super convicting, because it's like, I'm not that disciplined in these things. So if a big test and trial comes, it's like, how am I going to discipline myself not to do that? And that was just really, really crazy. But you've said a couple things, Sandy, that I picked up on. You said, I wish I was this disciplined in like reading or studying, or even like bring up the fact that how, running can just overshadow everything else in your life and becomes like almost this idol. Mm-hmm. And so my question to you guys was like, have you guys experienced like this physical fitness, or just even like how it makes you feel and how it makes you look, even becoming an idol where it like supersedes other areas of your life, and you see other areas maybe struggling because you have this, just view of, physical fitness? Man,
without a doubt, man. I'll I'll start off saying somebody that I know like did this super right, and that's you remember Tremonisha?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, bro! Like whenever she would get done throwing, she'd be like, "To God be the glory," and go sit down and chill. And like that's the mindset that like I wish I had. If I had that, then it wouldn't be any problem for me to just transition from like throwing to go do whatever else I needed to. Because in her head, that was worship. Like I'm worshiping God. Ain't worry about none of this stuff. If I do good, cool. If I don't, I'm gonna glorify Him in everything I do. So I'll start off by that, because it's like if you got that mindset, then you don't have to worry about it overshadowing anything else.
What about you personally?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Man, yeah. Like it's without a doubt. Like after I what is it? Always been like I was so bent up in my own appearance that like somebody's like, "Man, you're getting fat." I was like, "I am." But it was after my first year of college. I was lifting every day and I could squat 400 pounds like easy, like it was feathers. But that one statement made me run a mile every day. I wake up in the morning early, run a mile, work out, boom, 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 lost all the weight. Cool. Got back to school. Coach was like, "What are you doing? You're not gonna throw like that. You're skinny. Go eat some pizza." So it's like that kind of my appearance jacked me up. Like I could have been a whole lot better had I not have focused on my appearance. And not only that, like after college, it's hard out here, man. It's like I think it's the name after you get done with college and that athletic waking up every day thinking about like that was my thing. Like I am a track athlete. I'm good at it too. And that's what I'm good at. That's what I do. After that, it was like, oh crap, so who am I now? Like I'm a track athlete, but I don't compete collegiately anymore. Oh man, so where do I compete at? Oh, I can compete. No, I can't compete anywhere because I'm ineligible to compete. And I'm not good enough to throw with the big leagues, so where do I fit in at? Even within college, it'd be like, I work out every day. I have my obligation to the track team, but then I didn't really think about my career. I was like, yo, I want to do math. Math, cool. And it's like, well, why do you want to do math? Shut up, man. I'm really good at track, so leave me alone. I'm doing math. I'll do the classes. I'm going to pass because I'm smart. And we're good. But it beat me up because I didn't think about my future. I thought about how good I was doing in track. Oh, this is great. But then once the future hit me, it's like, oh, crap. I didn't think this through all the way. Now I got to live with it. So those are different things. Like when you're bent or you're bent up in something that defines you, sometimes you lose track of all those other things, and unless somebody's there holding you accountable that you care about and you listen to, it doesn't necessarily come to your mind how it needs to. Yeah.
So what about you, Sam?
Oh yeah, I mean, when so much of your life there's a correlation with your physical fitness and discipline and success, whether it be by getting a scholarship, winning a race, getting your name in the newspaper, hitting up on social media. Yeah, man, you learn that the merit is it's nice.
Yeah.
So it's easy for that. And then it's so easy. And I've been a believer since like 4th grade, but man, like it's hard not to view God in light of that performance drivenness. And 2, it's like hard not to try to get God to co-sign kind of like what you want in terms of like, I'm gonna go after these things. God, thanks for giving me the talent. Come alongside.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm injured. Oh, things aren't going well. Lord, let me come running. So I think that's part of it too. Is trying to figure is the self-awareness and the spirit, just the conviction on that stuff, which just for me it took a long time, because for the longest time I saw my efforts success. My efforts, success. My efforts, merit. My efforts, scholarship. My efforts, state championships. My effort, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, that becomes a correlation, a very strong correlation in your mind. Like, that's how life works, right? That's how faith.
Right.
That's how faith kind of fits in that mold, right? Yeah. That's how God my relationship, right? I put in this effort, and He's proud, so He awards
That's who, boy.
And and so you can hear the gospel, but like when a large part of your life, which running and fitness it's hard to break those really strong correlations. And man, I think I'll probably spend a lifetime really battling that, just because during my formative years, I saw how directly tied to what my heart really like at a flesh level yearns for, which is self-recognition, self-promotion, these things that came along with, for me, fitness. By running, by means of running.
Yeah. Right. No, that I'm really glad you guys made those illustrations, especially when you talk about like no longer competing and finding your whole identity in that. And it's like, yo, what do I do now? Yeah. I don't have this anymore. And then even with you saying like just connecting it to like just works righteousness. Right. Where it's like I put in effort, I get success. Put in effort, I get success, and it's like that runs completely counter to the gospel, because you can't do anything to earn any kind of merit or any success. It's primarily on someone else's effort and merit and not your own. So it's very humbling, where it's like I can't do, because you, like you were saying, I put these mental blocks where I said I couldn't do it, but then I could, and there's a healthy balance of that. But especially when it comes to life, it's like no matter how good you do, you know.
Right. So if I can jump in real quick, in the past year, my favorite documentary. And this probably shows some of my whiteness, was Free Solo. Has anyone seen this by chance?
Of course not.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish.
Okay, good.
I could watch documentaries.
Right? So Free Solo is about a guy by the name of Alex Honnold, who was free soloing is a type of rock climbing by which you don't use harnesses. And on very short rocks, they call it bouldering, which essentially is you don't have a harness, but I mean you're 10 feet off the ground, and they put like mats, like a gymnastics mat. So if you fall, you fall into these things. Free soloing is you're doing epic climbs, and we're talking 100, 200 feet, where if you did fall, like a good chance you're gonna die, right?
Yeah.
And so he free soloed. He's been the only person ever free soloed this very, very challenging 3,000 foot rock face out in the Yosemite called El Capitan, and so, or El Cap is what they call it for short. Anyhow, I did a documentary on it. It's incredible. It took a little under 4 hours, and he's doing it, and it was incredible. And I left. I mean, just his single hand, or his single mindedness when it came to this. I mean, he was dating some girl. He almost dumped her because she was getting in the way of like, his physical feat. That it took so much of his emotional and physical. And he spent years trying to accomplish it. And it won like is it Grammy, Emmy?
I don't know.
What is it? Grammy, I believe, is what it was for like a short documentary. Or for
I think Grammy's music.
Okay, so not Grammy, not Emmy. Was it Emmy? Is
Academy? I don't know. One of those.
Academy Award. That's what it was. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, there you go. Good
job.
I have no idea.
Not Nate, Brennan. You don't get credit for that.
yeah. No, I don't want.
But anyhow, there was. So what I took away from that, this really cool film, which was a documentary, so I loved it. Was like, man, this guy was rewarded for the single-mindedness that he placed towards this one physical feat, which I'm sure, if he's honest, wasn't what he. I mean, it was incredible. No one's ever done it. I mean, it was like a physical barrier that no one had. But he was rewarded for this single-handed, single-minded, single-focused, and so much of like, I feel like there's so much affirmation in a worldly sense of like going all in on one thing and seeing like, yes, achieve, go after that, like don't have balance. As long as you're going towards this goal, as long as you're getting close to it, as long as you're trying to, like, we're affirming that at whatever cost, right? Like, it's like, oh man, my marriage is disaster, but man, I got this. Or man, it's like, yo, my private life is dark, but publicly you see me going for this epic goal, so like, awesome. Yeah. And at what, Bruh, so it's kind of like, man, at what, like, that's why I think the thing is so important in this discussion. And why I think, Paul tells Timothy, right, in 1 Timothy 4:8, right? Or so is that Timothy wrote? Do we know? Timothy wrote to Timothy, right?
Yeah, correct.
Where he says, "For physical training is of some value, but godliness has value above all things, holding promise not only in this life but the life to come."
Oh man,
bro, like that has been like the knock me up, like, and I've had to add different that verses. This is why the beauty of Scripture, how the different like it hits you one time in this season, and next season you're like, no, I hear it from a different way. It's different, right? Yeah. All these same Scripture, same Spirit, but like life experience helps drive it home a different way.
Oh man, praise God. Man.
It's real. I just think like the hard part of all this too is coming to an understanding that like it's okay to have goals. It's okay to set and go after, but man, like, this is our hearts. Like, it's never enough.
Yeah.
It's never good enough.
Yeah.
It'll never hold the weight of what we want it to.
Right. It's got to be submitted to the Father.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, even all that work you put in and everything, that's what makes it perfect. I mean, like, when you're doing all of that, I feel like that's what I miss. Like, if I was working that whole time and saying, hey, it's for you, God, all this that happens, this is straight up for you, then, you know, I would have had peace no matter what. Mm-hmm. Like, even if I sucked completely, like, some of the best competitions I've ever had, I've cried, I've prayed, I've sat there and just listened to, like, Andy Mineo or something before I threw, and then just said, bump it, let's go, God, and I'm like, throw super far, but I don't care because His glory goes to Him either way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's some of the best competition I've ever had. But looking back on it, it wasn't, the reason why it was so good is because it was for His glory, not for mine.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, that's like the thing. You tie that in, and that's just what it's about.
Yeah, and I think once you lose focus of that, because I've heard you mention it too, where it affects your mental health, because you like just start to doubt, and it's like, what's going on? All this effort that I put in, I'm not getting the results. And even I remember one time you were talking, I've witnessed it, the times when you were like, I just got injury after injury after injury, where it's like you couldn't do what you had loved anymore, and it's just like, God, what are you doing? You know, this is something that I love, I'm passionate about. Why are you allowing these things to happen? And just, you know, just messing with just like that, and again, talking about it in a complete sense, because now that you're physical, you can't do what you want to do physically. It just messes with you mentally and spiritually and emotionally, and that's something that I've seen. I was telling you guys earlier, just this idea of mental health coming to the forefront, and us having more conversations about it, and wanting to not be one of these people of just having a trend, because our pastor, he actually touched on it, especially in the church. I don't think I've ever heard a sermon preached on mental health, and it wasn't this type of thing where it was because the culture is talking about it, I am. And again, once we were off the mics, we were saying how, just from my opinion, I feel like the church is like behind so many things, where it's like the world will start talking about diversity, and then all of a sudden churches, we've got to be more diverse. Or even like this idea of wokeness, where it's like, oh snap, now we've got to be woke. And it's like, why the church is always like playing second fiddle when we should be like leading the forefront. And it's the same idea with this mental health thing. It's like, we've heard people in the world talking about mental health, and now the church is. And that's no shot at anybody, because I think the sermon series we were going through, we were talking about the armor of God, and we got to the helmet of salvation. So it was very applicable. It was very applicable in the situation. And then what ended up happening was our brother Sandy was able to grace us on the stage and preach a word. Let me see if I remember what it was called. It says, when life doesn't make sense. And you kind of piggybacked off of this idea of talking on mental health. How was that, preparing for that sermon and addressing such a heavy topic? How was that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, the sermon was a public proclamation of what had been happening in our marriage, right? In the sense that, like, something that my wife and I had gone through, or still, right? I don't want to speak as we've passed,
right?
And it's kind of been like a kind of like our family verse for my wife and I, right? So it's 2 Corinthians 4. I think it's 15 through 17. It's in that ballpark. But it says, for these light momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal weight of glory that far exceeds them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. And so I was really wrestling with this idea, and still to this day, I mean, right, like we preach a sermon like we got it in our spirit, right? But the reality is that's a lot of times only the beginning workings out of what the scripture, of what that word has for us, and also to what the Lord may bring into our life once we preach it. Okay, let me be
oh man, no doubt, yeah.
But I think the Lord had been preparing that, preparing me in that as my wife has wrestled with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and kind of what they would call. And again, a lot of people think it's like, man, you gotta change. It's about organization, and those are some of the manifestations of people. But a lot of it is these kind of intrusive thoughts that get stuck, and people have a hard time filtering those things out. And so they really, it's like it overtakes them, and they come to think that's who they are, that they've done something, or that, like, have you ever, I mean, just for an example, and I might have mentioned this in the sermon, but have you ever been in a room and you're like, man, what if I just yell out a curse word right now? Or if you're like in a big auditorium, have you ever like,
yeah, yeah, no doubt.
I mean, maybe not. Or if you've been on a bridge, you're like, what if I just jumped right now? Like,
right? No, yeah, without a doubt.
I mean, yeah. I know I have, right? And so to think about that thought, and you're like, well, that would be a suicidal jump, or like that would just be, why would I yell like the F word out in this like auditorium or at church, right? That would be like really like messed up, right?
Right.
But then you kind of like, that's crazy. I don't know why I thought that. And then,
crap.
Yeah.
I just wanted to try it.
Yeah. No, it wasn't even that cool because it wasn't really a curse word.
Well, we had Pat on here, and I think I met our curse quota.
Oh, really?
So we're good.
Okay.
Shout out to Pat.
Yeah.
Thanks,
but keeping it real, I appreciate that. But so with someone with OCD, let's just say, that's kind of a silly thing to think about. But for them, they may think, oh my gosh, the fact that I had a thought about jumping off a bridge means that I'm suicidal, and because I'm suicidal, I don't want to live, and like I hate life, and so they start to think, I probably, like next time I see a bridge, I'm going to jump off. And so the thought just kind of continues to simmer, and they can't filter it out. It just gets stuck. And so they think on it, and then they're like, I mean, and that's just a small example, but you could play this out in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
And so this is an area that my wife has really been, has wrestled with, and it led her to her having to step away from her job, and really in our first year of marriage being in a spot where she was going through some really tough spots, and but the Lord used that, right? So but going back to the verse, like, man, how do we see something as light as momentary? When you're in the middle of it, it feels like anything but light. It feels very, very weighty, very heavy, and you don't see an end to it.
Yeah.
And you're like, Lord, what are you achieving through this? I mean, like, yes, we're supposed to, glory in our sufferings because of what it produces, or consider pure joy, right? James says, but it's like, when you're going through it, these are really
realistically
things to like preach to yourself, but God is still using that. But so let me just kind of go full circle with the sermon prep. It really had been something we've been wrestling for 2 years, that had brought us to a place that there was a verse that I think kind of encapsulated, and my wife was cool with me being able to share some of that, because I do think God got a lot, and has gotten glory out of what has happened. But we have to preach to ourselves daily the truths that we don't feel and or believe are playing out, right? Like, we don't think anything. It's hard to feel or see that there's anything being achieved by
all the pain and suffering
what Paul is saying is light momentary difficulties, or light momentary trials. Because for Deanna, like, this is at points a life or death thing, and therefore for me it becomes that too.
Right.
But I do believe that God has brought that as a part of our testimony, and so, but let's be honest. I mean, the cool part is, as we've shared, I mean, I can only begin to share some of the feedback that I got from even just being able to share that in the sermon, and people being able to say, I mean, that we've experienced that. I'm going through that. I didn't know the name to that, or and so it's like, man, like, we're gonna and I think this is one of the Satan's greatest ploys, is to keep these things under wraps, right?
Keep us
But
quiet.
even this morning, I was telling Deanna, and one of you guys who are more spiritual than I am can tell me where it is. And it's in one of the Corinthian letters to the Church of Corinth. I don't know if it's first or second, where it's like, none of these sins or these struggles are uncommon to man. So I don't care how lewd or crazy a thought is, or like how messy we feel our mind. Like, somebody's been there, or is gonna be there. Right. 2 Corinthians talks about, like, we go through these so we can comfort others. Right. Like, goes on to say, when we were in Asia, we were beyond our ability to endure. We thought, like, death itself was actually better than this. Okay. Well, part of that, I guarantee you, had to be mental. So, like, the fact that you're feeling like you'd rather not live than to deal with this, that's normal. Like, that, like, people have dealt with that. Like, let's not get caught up in thinking that, and that's why the helmet of salvation the helmet is so important, because the darts, the fiery darts, are, you're the only one ever thought this, you're crazy, you're demented, you're depraved, God cannot help this. Like, if you share this, the church will turn its back on you.
Crazy.
And man, fighting that,
that's
like, the church has got to be on the forefront of that.
No, I definitely appreciate that, because it highlighted two big things. Is this idea of mental health, and that how prevalent it is, not just out in the world, but in the church. And it is something that needs to be talked about, because, again, like you said, you're talking about OCD. My wife got me into, like, Monk. I don't know if you guys talk about white shows. You ever watch Monk? Or
No. I put it back. I am familiar.
No, but Monk, he's like this detective who had like OCD, and he would like just be touching stuff. And so that's all you like know of OCD, or just people who just have like these nervous tics and stuff like that. Yeah. But not realizing that OCD, you know, is like a mental thought. It's like, I can't even filter out this thought, which is like really crazy. And just kudos to you for just being there to support your wife.
Yes.
So kudos to that. But I definitely wanted to ask this question, especially all of us here are married. And I was saying earlier how it's not only we've got to be mindful of taking care of ourselves, but even looking out for our spouses, and not just their physical well-being, but again, like their mental well-being, being their rock, being some sort of stability for them. How's that been for you, Nate? Just, you know, looking out and taking care of your wife's wellness.
Yeah. So I struggle with that, man. I often a way that I beat myself up a lot is like I'm not a good leader, because my and it's not a bad thing. My wife is very organized. Has everything set up most of the time. And as far as the structure, she got that junk down packed. Me, not so much. I'm just like, all right.
Yo, my world don't stop when the beats commence. Said I'm climbing up this ladder just to get over this fence and run far, far away from the games people play. In this melancholy modern day music Malay, touche. Pussycats with lives to spare that kick, you know, in your heart, nice as hell. Yeah, be aware, beware. I hate to see you less a liver or worse. Polar bear, winter time, catch the river. Now that's cold, and like that, now that's old. Didn't buy the last copy of this, now that's old. It's the pepper on your salt, my dudes, I grind it out. And the answers to the questions of life, I find it out. With that stress, I walk with access. Be he who Max says, with simple blackness. Cause in the end, God bless us, which is so profound. So I stick to my guns. Urban soul be the sound, and y'all do it. What you talking about? Got me walking out.